see how we're doing with that. Got that there. Good. Got me. Where the heck am I? There I go. Sweet. All right. We're here to talk about biodiversity. All right. Human impact on biodiversity specifically. So, what we're going to start off with is this. We're going to start off with Figure 2, distribution of continents and diversity of species over time. So this one right here, it's 3.2. These are some blue questions. Yeah, we're starting right off with blue. So with reference to Figure 2, identify when the diversity of species was lowest in the past 400 years. So trend line, diversity of species. So dang, we got to go down here. All right, 400 million years. Last 400 million, bam, like that. So I'm going to say when it was lowest was probably 250 million years ago. Yep. Describe what may have caused the deviation from the trend line at point X in Figure 2. So let's see about that. Where is Figure X? Right here. Oh, what did that one? Could be volcanic eruption, could be meteor, something like that. Identify the relationship between the number of continents and the diversity of species during the past 250 million years. So when the continents were all together, diversity of species was relatively low. As the continents start spreading apart, the diversity of species increased. Why? Because they could do their own thing. Describe 2 reasons why there is a relationship between the number of continents and the diversity of species. Because species need habitat, and the more diverse the habitat, the more diverse the possible species. Yeah, there you go. All right. That's one reason anyway. I should give you another one. Number of species and the diversity of species. Diversity of ability to genetically differentiate. Go with that one. Outline the role of natural selection in increasing the diversity of species. It's not the biggest and strongest that survive. Natural selection is when you have genes that allow you to benefit, and that benefit allows you and your offspring to replicate versus the competition, the others. So, all right, threats to biodiversity. Primary threat, humans. Simple, all right? Yep. We interfere quite a bit with biodiversity as human beings, so we want to definitely try to minimize that. But it's awfully tough to do. We like interfering. We like making things better, but indirectly sometimes we make things worse. Expanding population uses more resources. So, yep, we use more resources, that's less resources for animals to use, or plants, or ecosystems. So, natural hazards and environmental disasters. Natural hazards can be disasters. They happen regardless of humans. They happen naturally. Hey, look, volcanic explosions were going to happen regardless. Hurricanes going to happen regardless. Freak snowstorms happen regardless. It's just they hurt a little bit more when they're near power lines, and it affects us a little bit more. Environmental disasters are human activity that has a large negative impact on the environment. Say like an oil spill. That would be an environmental disaster. That's a rather common one. Hey, we had a train wreck in Ohio recently, and that spilled all sorts of nasty chemicals all over. Hey, nuclear explosions. Yeah, that's pretty bad. So things along that nature. If you need guidance on how to do the table above, look at page 278 in the book. So natural hazards right here. Give an example. Impact on human communities. So, yep. Volcanic eruptions. Give an example. Mount Vesuvius. Impact on human communities. It covered the whole city in ash. And basically the heat, from what I think someone was telling me, a lot of bodies got incinerated, the heat killed others, and if it didn't, then the ash would have, just by breathing it in. So yep, do that for all the rest. Habitat loss right here. Let's scoot on down for that one. Actually, yeah, we'll go like this. Just like that. Habitat loss. Habitat is the environment that species live in. So we need different ones. We need stability for that habitat to exist. Without stability, it's kind of just chaos. And chaos is not an area to thrive. So you need variety in the habitat. Why? Because like if you only have like one type of plant, one type of animal, no habitat really, no diversity. So biggest way humans decrease biodiversity is through habitat loss. Oh, sorry. I'm actually filming this at 3 a.m. just because I got insomnia. So look, I had a debate once in class between someone who was pro hunting and a student that was a vegetarian and definitely more animal rights. And the one thing I could get them to agree on was that we need less shopping malls and we need more habitat for deer. So, yeah, just because you differ in opinions with somebody doesn't mean that you can't work towards like the greater good or a goal. So, all right, mostly through damage or destruction. So, yeah, we basically clear out habitat and it's a lot easier to clear out forest and put down new buildings than it is to for some reason take down old buildings and put new buildings. So sorry, can involve degradation, destruction, and fragmentation. Fragmentation is huge. Just because like look, if you've got a lot, they talk about the edge effect with fragmentation. So instead of having one central big park where you have like animals with a lot of safety in the center, what it is like a lot of little parks all over the place. So it's a lot of edge. Usually bigger animals do not thrive as well with fragmentation. So habitat destruction. Machinery causes the most, and we do a lot. Hey, look, when modern logging, used to be logging was done with mules. It doesn't really have as big of an environmental impact as a huge skidder that is meant to just clear cut. Problem occurs when we destroy habitat faster than nature can restore it. So again, clear cutting. Clear cutting takes a lot longer. This was succession for it to come back versus like taking select logs, and it doesn't take nearly as long. Habitat degradation decreases the habitat quality until plants can't live there. That's simple. So yeah, you can poison that stream behind your building, a little bit, and it's not going to affect it. But once it gets to a certain point, the habitat's been degraded. There's no more living animals in that stream. There's no more, it's around the stream. It's basically polluted and plants won't grow. So pollution, climate change, invasive species. Yeah, all these can do it. I realize invasive species, you might be thinking it might increase biodiversity. The thing is, those invasive species can often take out the other species that are already there. So that's where they come into a problem. It's a problem because land more likely for desertification, plus erosion with degradation. So as you start using it, abusing it, you end up losing it. So you could have farmland when it dries on out. Look at the Dust Bowl, and it just becomes desertified. Like it's dry, it's dusty, it blows away real easy, it washes away real easy when there's rain, and it erodes. So you have a lot less of it. Talked about habitat fragmentation, basically taking one big area and breaking up into a bunch of small areas. It's caused by fields, power lines, roads, pipelines, highways are a major one of this. Anything that's going to be infrastructure usually does it pretty good. So decreases genetic pool for breeding. Think about that, all right? You're on one side of the highway. You're looking to get busy and you're an animal, all right? You're on one side of the highway. You see your mate on the other side of the highway. You want to get together and make little babies. Well, guess what? If the highway's in the middle, you could get murked if you cross, or you might not be able to cross at all. So, yeah. Big time effect. Decrease the genetic pool for breeding. Oh, yeah. So, obviously, if you can't mate, you're only mating with the people around you. It's kind of a thing for inbreeding. So, edge effect equals greater light temp and plus humidity on the edge of the habitat than the center. So, if you look at this, look, humanity, we put out a lot of light pollution. So, when you start, like for instance, how many of you we're in the greater Hartford area, how many of you really look up at the night and are able to see the stars? Very few of you. So just from the light pollution from our cities. So the more light we have and the more humans we have, the more light there is. The more light there is, the more it really impacts that environment and that habitat with how much light gets to around the edges. If you got a big, huge national park, you can't, the light that we produce doesn't really get to the center. So yep. And humanity affects more and more invasive species, which we talked about is bad. All right, next thing we're talking about down here is pollution. Mostly from humans, it's visible plus non-visible for the pollution. Air pollution. Again, you can see the smokestack coming out and you realize that's bad. All right, but there's a lot of stuff that you can't see that's bad too. Let's see if we can fix that. There we go. Partially combusted gases from the exhaust. So, yep. Sulfur dioxide plus carbon monoxide from smokestacks. Yep, you know what those look like. We've seen them, we've passed them. Burning plastic plus rubber. We do this quite a bit with incineration. We call it like green energy because they're like, oh, it's going to be trash anyway. So big time anyway. Big time problems with that. Small part, rubber, if you ever seen it burned, it puts out like a really black cloud. It's kind of nasty. If you ever see the movie Black Hawk Down, you'll see how they basically alerted the city that, oh, the U.S. is sending in helicopters. They did it by burning tires. So small particles, particulates from the forest fires, sand, etc. So these are more by nature. Obviously, forest fires get exacerbated by human anthropogenic activities. But yeah, so causes breathing problems plus eye irritation. That's one thing about it, air particles and air pollution. So light pollution down here. When humans cause light alters natural light levels. All right. Yeah. So look, messes with plant growth plus animals, especially with bird migrations. So, yep. Don't believe in light pollution? Try looking at the stars tonight. You ain't gonna see them if you're where I live. So, unless I'm off in Vermont, then I do see the stars because there is not as many people up there and there's less light pollution. Notice how new road lights only point downwards? That's less light pollution. That is a way that we're adapting. So you'll see how these modern LED lights use less energy, by the way, use less electricity, cheaper, but they also only point down. So all the light is going down, not up. So we use the light and we don't lose the light. So people install lights because they believe this reduces crime and theft. Do you agree with this? Me? Not really. All right. Noise pollution. Excessive sound from human activities. Affects humans mentally and physically. Stress, depression, high blood pressure, hearing loss, sleep disturbance. Look, you think this is bad, but you think this is kind of made up and kind of hippie-ish, but have like a smoke alarm go off or just something really annoying like that's consistent, like ding, 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 ding. Look, hop into a modern car. My car, literally, the only time I'd actually worry about it is it stopped dinging at me. It dings at me for everything. So, like ding, 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 ding. All right. So as a result, noise pollution, it's awfully aggravating, and it can have a big effect on mental and physical health. Lord knows it does a number on my mental health. So, yep. Could be why I'm up at 3 a.m., by the way, sleep disturbance. So, soil pollution. Soil contaminated with abnormal levels of toxins. This causes soil erosion. So, yeah, obviously with soil pollution, makes it toxic. Can also dry it up, which is where you get that soil erosion. Water pollution, it comes from a lot of insecticides, pesticides, industrial waste are usual sources. Big thing to look for in the future is PFASs. So, yeah. Fertilizers cause eutrophication. So, eutrophication with the fertilizer, that's basically where we put down nitrates on top of farms, for soil, and then that gets washed off into the waterways. The waterways then will bring it down to a lake, pond, or can bring it out to the ocean to create algae blooms. But at the lakes and ponds, it really allows algae to kind of like bloom or vegetation like lily pads and stuff to bloom, where basically the whole pond turns green, decreases sunlight coming in, ends up getting rid of the oxygen, kills off all the plant life and marine life in the pond. So then it's the lake and pond is completely sterile, no life in it. Then obviously the life, it takes a little bit for succession to come back and for it to regrow, but it doesn't really like get back to where it was very easily. So, all right. Fertilizers can use TOK. There are long-term consequences from biodiversity loss. Should people be held morally responsible for the long-term consequences of their actions? Think about prior generations of humanity and what they did, and should they be morally held responsible? So, look at your house. Do you have asbestos in your house? Do you have lead paint? Both of which are health hazards to you. Previous generations, did they know better? Did they do it anyway? Did they not know? Should they be held accountable? For IA ideas, you will have to do later in the course. Look at the top of page 281. Big time help. You're gonna have to do this thing called an IA in my school senior year, second year if you're in this DP course for another college or whatnot. So, overexploitation, not a problem back in the day because population was low. Now the population is high, uses more resources. So way back in the 1700s, even then we were overexploiting it because we started overfishing the Grand Banks. And one of the reasons why England and France had colonies was because they wanted to bring those natural resources back to the home country. So, between surviving or protecting the environment, peeps will choose survival. Yep, every time. So, improved efficiency contributes to overusing resources. Think about this. Used to be back in the day, you wanted to take down a tree. Depending on the size of the tree, you could take one guy to do it, but if it's a really big tree, you'd need to take two, and you would go at it with a saw that goes back and forth because you'd have one guy on one side and one guy on the other. Now, with a chainsaw, you can take down a lot of trees very quickly, so you need less humans to harvest more resources. So, yep. Chainsaws versus handsaws, big factory ships versus small fishing boats. Yeah, gone is the day of like the small little fisherman in his boat, just motoring out of the bay, throwing down a net, catching what you catch, and bringing it on back. Now what you have is these big like fishing boats. They're almost like the mothership. They go way out to the sea at and then they have little small boats around it, and they collect all the fish in that area, and they process it and harvest it right there on the mother boat or the big boat. And then by the time they get the fish back to shore, it's already been frozen, and that thing could have been caught weeks ago. So, yeah, kind of interesting. Game cameras for hunting versus traditional hunting. Traditional hunting is where you're stalking, you're the deer, you gotta look for deer sightings, stuff like that. Now, modern hunting, you can put up a game camera. By the way, I think I got a few if you want to use them for IAs. I don't hunt. I don't have any problem with it, to be honest with you. It's up to you whether you decide game cameras or are fine for hunting or not. I have game cameras for IAs. Yeah, to look for animals and stuff. But you could totally set up game cameras where you're tracking a deer in the deer path all year long. And then as soon as hunting season goes, you just stumble across the path that he goes across every day in the morning and you bag them. So define maximum sustainable yield. Ooh, MSY. You know how IB loves their abbreviations. Let's get that down there for me. Yeah. All right. If we take more than the MSY, species or environment dies. So, yep. It's basically what's sustainable is that's the S in there. Introducing non-native, exotic, or alien species. Ooh, invasive species can massively damage the environment. Humans, through globalization, are mostly responsible for it. Some is intentional, others unintentional. Hey, look, they brought, I think, pigs or wild boar to Hawaii. They didn't have them there before. They took right on over. So sometimes invasive species work. Potato to Europe. Oh my God, was the best thing ever. Do you know that if you were back in the 1500s in Europe, they didn't have French fries. They didn't have patatas bravas if you were in Spain. They didn't have chips if you were in England. All right. No. The potato came from the Americas. Yep. So they brought it on over. As a result, they started having all these great foods that came about because of the potato. So rubber trees in the South Pacific. Oh, yeah, they took right to it. So started growing rubber down there. Really helped out with industrialization. It can lead to disasters, though, as well. Rhododendrons are taking over Europe. We had one outside my house growing up. They're beautiful plants, but they can outcompete native species in Europe. Dutch elm disease came to Europe from America. Hey, not everything from America is good. McDonald's and Dutch elm disease are two examples of things that are bad. So, killed millions of trees. Yep, Australia has been big time screwed up because it was an isolated island for so long. So yeah, anything that's brought into Australia, pretty much invasive species. Australia marsupials really thrive there. So yeah. Spread of diseases. Disease can decrease biodiversity. Think COVID. Humanity took a big hit with biodiversity with COVID. Why? Because a lot of people ended up dead. So more so in dense populations. Again, think about COVID. So, yeah. Spread of disease really happens when you got tight-knit communities. When they're spread out, it's more issues. Talking about spreading out. Disease can spread from wild animals to domesticated. It can go from like wild dogs or wolves to your household canine. It can also spread from domesticated animals to the wild. So if your dog comes down with something, it can transfer it off to wolves or wild dogs potentially. Diseases are mostly for specific animals, but they can mutate to get other species. Swine flu, 2010. The bird flu. Foot and mouth disease, COVID-19. Yep, that's basic. I saw a really bad motivational shirt for COVID-19. It said basically, whoever thought one man couldn't change the world never took a bite out of a bat. So, yep. So, poaching and the illegal pet trade. Yep, rather bad. This is one of those ones you're like, how is this still going on? But hey, it does. Poaching equals illegal trafficking or killing of wildlife. Yeah. So, tell me how these animals are categorized on the IUCN Red List. Look up on page 283 in the book. Or other source. Yeah. Okay. So, tigers, rhinos, pangolin, sharks, rays, African elephant, sea turtle. Yeah. Tell me whereabouts they're about on that IUCN list. Illegal pet trade obviously strongly contributes to the loss of biodiversity. You don't have to be a rocket scientist to that. When you're taking them out of their wildlife habitat, and there weren't many to begin with, that decreases the gene pool and how much they can make out and replicate with other animals. So climate change also has a big part. It happens naturally, but anthropogenic, human-caused activities make it worse. So natural causes include solar activity, volcanic eruptions, Earth orbital changes. That's all for climate change, by the way. That's like things that affect climate change naturally. You know how like people argue with climate change? They're like, the climate's been changing anyway. Yeah, it has. All right. It's always going to be changed. If there wasn't a single human on this world, it would change. Nothing stays the same. But humanity kind of has been increasing it lately and generally contributing via like global warming. So, all right. Impacts include, all right, rising temps, decrease atmospheric water vapor, which decreases vegetation growth. Basically, yeah, if you're a plant like where we are here in central Connecticut, we grow Enfield shade tobacco. I think it's the tobacco used on the outer leaf of cigars. The thing is, it loves a warm, humid climate. Connecticut, I know you don't think it's warm like during the summer. It is. Reason why is because we have this river valley that goes straight up. So there's literally no breeze between June and like really the middle of June and maybe in the beginning of June all the way through the middle of September. There's no breeze. All there is, and so there's no breeze. All that water vapor just stays in the river valley, and it feels like a swamp, and it's hot. And humanity, we don't like that. But the plants, they love it. It's like, oh yeah, warmth, water vapor all around me. Oh yeah, I can grow. They thrive. So without that water vapor, plants don't grow as well. Rising sea levels. Yep, they have an effect. So obviously, rising sea levels. That's why we don't buy oceanfront property in Miami. Increasing ocean temperatures bleaches out coral. Also has to do with like fish and where they choose to stay, where they choose to go. So, yep. Obviously, if you're fishy, you need a certain temperature. So they're very specific to temperatures. Let's go carbon dioxide. Increasing it increases ocean acidification, decreases coral, no more coral, decreased biodiversity, no buenos. All right, increased algae blooms just with nitrification and rising ocean temperatures. Increases wildfires, increases severe weather, storms. Total world biodiversity. We don't know the number of species on Earth. Like literally, we don't. All right. They think it's around 8.7 million, with 6.5 million on land and the other 2.2 out in the water. So 86 to 91% haven't been cataloged, discovered, and described. So you might know about it. It might have been discovered, hasn't really been cataloged, or it hasn't been described. So 67% of the species are in the tropics. Warm weather, animals like it a lot more, within reason. When you start getting up with global warming, tough to combat with that. All right. All right. What makes a species prone to extinction? What does prone mean? Yeah, you should know that. Anatomically, prone means laying face down, but that's not what we're looking for with this. Some species more likely to die out. Yeah. All right. So, what makes some species are just more likely to die out. They just don't adapt. Their time is done. They've played out. There's a new predator in town, more likely to die out. Often more than one factor does lead towards extinction. There's not one thing you can point at. Factors include narrow geographical range, can only live in a small area. If you're a bird and literally your habitat is 100, like if your habitat is, like 150 to 300 meters above the ground, and there's very little of that in your area, you're not going to be living long. So, small population size. After a while, the odds of dating your cousin are high, and that's not good. So, yeah, look, if you only have out there, like, I think where I was up in the Gaspé Peninsula in Canada, I think there's something like 58 or 59 caribou still in that national park. The odds of date, and that's the last, herd of caribou south of the St. Lawrence. And yeah, man, the odds of dating your sister or your cousin, they're pretty good. That does not lead to good genetics at all. So having a little bit of diversity is a good thing. Smaller population sizes are make it difficult. Low population density. Animals are too spread out, hard to hook up. Hey, look, if you are a moose and you want to get busy, the only problem is the nearest moose that's, for you to get busy with is 30 miles away. Means you're not going to be getting busy as often. So, few populations of the species. Wiped out in one area, wiped out in all of them. So, yeah. Remember I talked to you about that caribou up in Canada? So, that's the one south of the St. Lawrence. If they do die out, there are caribou north of the St. Lawrence. So, yeah. Animals are too spread out, hard to hook up. Few populations of the species, yep. Large physical body, predators mostly, but you can have it for herbivores too. There aren't a lot because they eat a lot of food. So when you know how the food pyramid goes, when you're up at the top of that pyramid, it takes a lot for you to maintain that large body and to be that top apex predator. So it just takes a lot more for that to happen. So a lot more can go wrong on the lower levels of the food chain that could really kill you on out. So low reproductive potential. Hard for an animal to reproduce if it does not often get freaky. I think pandas fall into this. Pandas have a tough time breeding because they're not really in the mood to make out as often as other animals. So it's like, very, sporadic and not very often. Seasonal migrants. Problems. They need habitats to be safe. They need both habitats to be safe. So let's think about this one. Trying to give you an example. Birds migrate. Monarch butterflies. There we go. So monarch butterflies, where we are in North America, they're up here in Connecticut during the summer, and then during the winter months, I believe they migrate to Mexico. If their habitat in Connecticut is destroyed, they can't survive. If the habitat is destroyed in Mexico, they can't survive. They basically need two habitats. So, poor dispersers. Think of plants. Their seeds often don't travel far. I do realize that they can travel far if there's ocean or water or wind, or even animals can take them away. So I'm just having fun with my beard. Sorry. So yeah, they often don't travel very far for as far as plants. Niche requirements. When animals and plants need very specialized things to survive. Think pandas in the wild. Again, we're hitting on pandas. They only eat bamboo. So if that bamboo dies out, they're like, oh shoot, I don't want to eat mushrooms. Oh, all right. Edible to humans. Humans love tasty animals, and we're really good at tracking them down and eating too many. Yep, we will kill, like, if we like something, we will take a bunch of it. So think of that with salmon, tuna. Yep, we're really good at tracking them down. Really good at killing them, too. Makes it really tough for us basically to make animals extinct. So island organisms. Likelihood of dating your cousin increases. It's just a small dating pool genetically on an island. All right, it's very isolated. tend to be really weak against invasive species. Why? Because like if you're just living your best life on this tropical island, you got no predators, things are good. The only thing you got to worry about is just finding food. And then boom, they introduce a predator. Man, you haven't had to worry about survival in like quite a few generations. So you're kind of weak. So yep, you're gonna get murked. Pests to humans. Yeah, we're pretty good at getting rid of them too. So with extinction. So yeah, if you're a bear in, you know, New England here historically, you're the one who ruins chicken coops. You eat a lot of the livestock that we have. Guess what? We got an answer for you. All right, you ain't going to be around long. So there's a certain number of animals in the wild that are necessary for a species to survive. Drops below that and likely going extinct. Think about dating pool. Once you get down to like, I think it's 500 animals or so, you know, genetically, you're going to burn out and go extinct. It's just a matter of time. So the IUCN Red List is the mission is to help societies conserve diversity of nature. Use of natural resources is equitable and ecologically sustainable. So that's their goal. That's their mission. It's basically to help out biodiversity, throughout the world. The red list is a list of species at different levels of threat of survival. Everywhere from least concerned all the way up to, yep, you're dead, you're extinct, no more of you. So, starting from least concerned, fill in the categories ending with extinct. So, status is determined by these criterion. Let's see. Population size, degree of specialization, distribution, reproductive potential, geographic range, plus fragmentation, quality of habitat, trophic level, and probability of extinction. So, yep. All right, here we go. Just for my class, let's see if I can get that all the way down. Yeah, right there. So look, if you're not in my class, like if you're watching this and you're in someone else's class, on page 290 through 297, they give you all these examples of critically endangered species, recovered species, and extinct species. So I'm just going to have my class research one. You might want to do all of them, depending on who your professor is. So, yep. But critically endangered species, just choose one of the Carnaberry black cockatoo or the Rafflesia or the tiger. And research it. Include the geographic range, description, ecological role, known threats, conservation measures. Yep. For the recovered species, again, choose one, the Australian saltwater crocodile or the golden lion tamarin. So, yep, you can use a book or other resources. Include the geographic range, description, ecological role, known threats, and conservation measures. Extinct species. You're only going to have to choose one of these two, the Tasmanian tiger or the dodo. The dodo is kind of interesting because I think we used it. We ate them all. All right. Include geographic range, description, ecological role, known threats, and not conservation measures, consequences of disappearance. So, yep. So we're going to end it with talking about the tragedy of the commons. I don't think I do such a great job teaching this part, but we're going to give it a go. It's basically for the good of the all versus the good of the individual. So remember, humans will do what they have to do to survive. We have to get into like a higher kind of thinking to start thinking about long term for that. Like realize that like, are you taking this resource to survive, or are you taking it to kind of get ahead at the expense of the greater good? So think of it like stocks. There's very few people that will take, the short-term gain versus long-term gain. So if something belongs to all, we tend to trash it, overexploit it, overuse it. Look at the oceans, all right? They don't belong to like any one country. So what do countries do? They send out huge fishing fleets to overtake catches. So because if you don't take it, look at the Pacific Ocean. If the Japanese don't take it, well, those Philippines definitely will. And if the Philippines don't, oh my gosh, those China fishing vessels were going to come in and take it as well. So, yep, huge problems with fishing fleets. Regulation legislation aims to stop this. The problem is we all have to get on board with it. So, examples are overfishing specific parts of the ocean and how plastic often ends up in the ocean. Is it one single person's fault? No. Does it tragedy the common though, where we just think like, hey, the ocean's there for us to overexploit? Yep, it is. That's what we think. So, all right, everybody, that is 3.2, my best, and thank you.